Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mohit Kaul and I bring around 8 years of experience at ACE Managed Security Services. I'm glad you've all taken time out of your busy day to join us today. We'll be discussing solutions for one of the greatest threats businesses are facing these days, cyber attacks. First, let me introduce my co-speakers. I am joined by Greg Lowe from CrowdStrike, the leading endpoint security platform OEM in today's market. Greg himself has a valuable experience of over a decade in the cybersecurity industry and is here to share the giant leaps CrowdStrike technology has made in endpoint protection. Also, joining Greg and I will be ACE's very own Deepak Jain. Deepak heads the network and security teams at ACE. He's a certified ethical hacker, our in house expert for all aspects related to cybersecurity, and he'll be answering your questions on best practices for cybersecurity optimization. Let's discuss today's agenda. We will start this webinar by talking about the current state of the security landscape. After taking a deep dive into the cybersecurity threats and challenges organizations face in 2023, I'll introduce you to ACE Managed Security Services that we extend to any scale and size of organization, and then demonstrate how we address these problem areas with ACE Security Framework and a real-world case study of a BPO. At that point, Greg will take over and share insights on CrowdStrike's endpoint protection capabilities. We'll end this with a short Q&A round, but you don't have to save your questions till the end. Please type them on the chat window and we'll address them during the Q&A round, obviously. By the end of our time today, I hope you feel more comfortable and confident about cybersecurity risk mitigation and adopting multi-layered solutions that we'll be discussing. So without any further delay, let's get started. So what does the current cybersecurity landscape look like? I would say that a threat landscape becomes more dangerous and expensive every year in terms of cybersecurity, and 2023 is no different. According to a research by Cybersecurity Ventures, the average cost of a data breach hit a staggering $4.35 million globally. It's a huge amount. This amount is exorbitant for small businesses. And compounding that issue is the fact that small businesses account for 43% of cyber attacks. Imagine. This is clearly according to a research by a company, Small Business Trends. And these two trends show that SMEs are a significant target and stand to suffer major financial and reputational damage when being hit. So, what kind of cybersecurity challenges are we potentially looking at? From the basics of it, I would say the lack of cybersecurity awareness. I believe many individuals and organizations do not understand the importance of cybersecurity and are not taking the necessary steps to protect themselves from cyber threats. Knowing that there are so many cyber threats lurking around, and as we move forward into the new year, we must be aware that the increasing threats posed by international adversary groups are very common. These groups are often sponsored by foreign governments. They use increasingly sophisticated multi-vector attacks to target our critical infrastructure and steal sensitive information. You must have heard about these things happening common in the news lately. These groups do have certain names, but they keep on evolving and changing their names as they carry out attacks. So it's very important to stay updated on their daily activities. Some recent examples of these groups are the ones who targeted Brazil's Ministry of Health, Nvidia, Samsung, Ubisoft, Microsoft, along with Uber. They also target so many multiple companies, SMEs, and government organizations, and we rarely get to hear about that. Now, as we discussed multi-vector attacks, what are those? Any cyber attack that uses multiple methods or vectors to target a single victim or an organization is a multi-vector attack, to make it simpler. This can include a combination of techniques such as phishing, malware, and exploiting vulnerabilities in software and hardware. This is a very common tactic used by cyber criminals and are likely to continue happening in the future too. Such attacks are complex and can be difficult to detect and defend against, obviously. So it's important for organizations to have a robust cybersecurity strategy in place. Taking a quick example of the recent Uber hack, and in that case, multiple vectors used like compromised credentials, MFA fatigue, social engineering, and third-party vendor compromise were involved. So how did this even happen to such a large organization if what most of us must be actually thinking? It's primarily because of one of the reasons being understaffed SOCs, or one of the biggest challenges organizations face in understaffing of security operations centers, or SOCs, as I've mentioned. These teams are responsible for detecting and responding to cyber threats, but many organizations simply do not have enough personnel to properly staff their SOCs. There's a cybersecurity skills gap, and it refers to the shortage of skilled professionals with the knowledge and experience necessary to effectively defend against cyber threats. This shortage of talent makes it really difficult for organizations to staff their SOCs adequately, and it leads to an increased risk of security breaches, as you can understand. According to a study, global cybersecurity workforce gap has increased to almost 26.2% compared to 2021, with more than 3.4 million workers needed to secure assets effectively. It has also been observed that the skills gap is particularly acute in certain areas, such as incident response and threat hunting, which is very important to understand. Some studies suggest that the gap is even more severe in smaller companies. Then comes the cost of maintaining an in-house SOC. So if even some business or organization wants to maintain their security operations center in-house, it can be prohibitively high in terms of cost for many organizations. And this is a very serious problem, as it means that many companies are not able to properly defend themselves against the cyber threats. Organizations must invest in expensive security technologies and tools, as well as hire and train a team of qualified security professionals. Additionally, the constantly evolving nature of cyber threats requires organizations to continually update and upgrade their security measures, further dividing up costs. Let me tell you that the average cost of maintaining an in-house security operations center can vary widely depending on factors such as the size of the organization, the scope of its security needs, and the level of expertise required by its staff. According to Deloitte and the study that they did, the average cost of an in-house SOC is somewhere around $3.5 million per year. Now, we are seeing more and more industries rapidly digitalize their operation, and this is bound to happen. So the digitalization is actually making it easier for the attackers to find vulnerabilities and launch successful attacks. So these are the challenges that we are facing currently in the coming year. Now, I know that we've been really discussing the problems and challenges for a while. So let's talk about positives and let's be a little more optimistic this time. With the right security approach, no cybersecurity issue is too big to tackle. And at ACE, we shape our security framework to match your needs. ACE is a specialized cybersecurity solution provider that offers services like fully managed endpoint security. It protects your devices, your servers, everything, including network security, cloud security, security information, and event management system. We'll come to that, and SOC as a service, as we discussed. With an experienced team of CISO professionals, we are here to assess your organization's security posture and recommend remediation solutions to improve its cybersecurity posture. I would also like to add here that ACE has been working with numerous businesses to strengthen their existing security posture already. ACE has been able to identify gaps in their current infrastructure and network that can potentially pose a threat, and accordingly, we provided each individual, each business, each organization with the required remediation plans and solutions. So, what does ACE Managed Security Service actually bring on the table? Or, in other words, what is the power of ACE Managed Security Services? ACE provides a bundled package of multiple fully managed security services that range from managed EDR using CrowdStrike Falcon. We provide managed email protection, managed SIEM. As we mentioned, it's an artificial intelligence powered machine learning based software along with DNS filtering, which is fully managed. This also includes round the clock monitoring without any additional staffing. So businesses do not need to train anyone, they do not need to hire anyone individually to maintain and to give support. ACE Managed Security Services will provide 24/7 threat detection capabilities to keep your data and your assets, everything that any hardware that you use, and we'll make them secure even if you are connected to the internet, and all this throughout the year. ACE's Managed Security Services will get you a dedicated SOC as a service. Again, something that could have costed $3.5 million a year on average, you'll not have to spend even a fraction of that amount. All of this is curated in a manner where ACE has focused on keeping the service extremely flexible and cost efficient based on how someone would want to use it. Using ACE's managed security services, businesses will start leveraging AI or ML capabilities in their operations. And this is something that everyone needs to focus on. ACE's managed security services would help businesses achieve required industry compliances as well. So any organization, no matter from which domain, from which industry, and if you are looking to achieve any compliance, ACE's security services will provide you with the required audits and reports to achieve those compliances. Now, at this moment, I would call upon Deepak to speak further on the services offered by ACE.
Thank you, Mohit. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deepak. I've been working with ACE for last, 8 years. I have a vast variety of experience, starting from technology, IT sector to the networking to the security, and now working with a lot of customers, helping them achieve their IT security compliances. So today, Mohit already gave a lot of good, explanation about the services that we offer. What we are doing here, I'm just going to brief you based on the NIST cybersecurity framework that we provide you 24/7 managed security services, and we would help you by observing data feeds across your enterprise. We will help you to detect and respond to the security threats and the incidents. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about, the very good question that everybody says that I already have got a lot of security products. Why we need services from you guys? So according to the NIST cybersecurity framework, it's basically a set of guidelines that helps you to deal with the cybersecurity threats. And it says that you first have to identify what all assets you're going to protect, and then you put a lot of investment in procuring security tools, like you buy antiviruses, you buy firewalls, web content filtering tools, you buy a password management tool, and you do a lot of security awareness training. There are a lot of controls that you put in place. Then you also plan for the recovery. So let's say something happens to your organization, you plan for your backups and recovery, you plan for your BCP, DR. You also buy your cybersecurity insurances that would help you to cope up with the cyber security incidents. But what we really miss is the detect and respond. So that's basically the SOC that Mohit been speaking about throughout this session. That it's very challenging for any organization to set up a dedicated SOC team because of the skills that it requires. The cost of maintaining a SOC, then the tools, technologies, everything is very complicated for small organizations or mid-sized organizations. So what we normally believe in, if you identify the asset, then you make the investment to buy the technologies that you want to use to protect your assets, you basically miss out on detection and response capabilities. And we mostly believe on or rely on employee self-reporting, or maybe you receive an outside notification, kind of a bug bounty, that you have received that someone has discovered some sort of bugs in your infrastructure, or you may have some physical security alarm that goes up whenever there's an incident. And the response is basically our IT team that deals with the incident that happens. But IT team doesn't know everything about security. So what they normally know is just deal with your IT assets. And you may have some emergency response, like third parties that you have hired to deal with such incidents. Now, these are really great gaps when we talk about cybersecurity framework. That even though you have made a lot of investment in procuring the security products, if you don't have detection and response capability, that is a huge gap in your cybersecurity preparation. Now, if I go to the next slide, I'll explain you how we help you to fill that gap. So what we bring in is we bring in a 24/7 threat detection capability to your current security posture. Despite whatever products you have, you definitely need some sort of skill set to configure these products properly so that these products are able to protect you from the cyber threats. You would also require the skill set to keep improving it, because putting a product is not a one-time activity. It definitely requires going back and forth, checking the configurations, keep on fine-tuning it, putting a lot of hardening uh, on your assets, and the fine-tune the policies of the tools and the technologies that you have invested in to protect yourself from the cybersecurity threats. Then in the detection capability, we will integrate all your tools that you have already procured, and we'll find out what is the gap. If we think that the current tool set is not capable enough to find the threats or deal with the modern threats, we'll definitely highlight that gap, and we would be able to introduce some new tools that can definitely help you deal with the modern threats. And how we do it, we have a complete SOC team, more than 150 people looking into the logs that we are collecting from various customers, and they look for the logs like if there is an anomalous user login, there's a excessive failed login attempts, if someone is escalating the privileges, or we do behavior analysis, we do threat intelligence, honeypots, machine learnings. So these are the detection capabilities that we bring in. And then from the response perspective, if there is an incident or an alarm that we detected in your environment, we bring in a 24/7 SOC analysis. We do P1 P2 alerting. We do process termination, that is an active response that we quickly provide. We do remediate, we provide you a remediation step, so we deal with your IT team, provide you how to deal with that incident, what steps they can take, how they investigate it, how they fix it. And we also help you with the threat hunting, security reporting, and the compliance reporting. Then obviously we would review your recover processes, that what you already have in place, and if everything is good enough, then recover, we go as along. But if you think that the recover needs improvement, we make suggestions. But we can go to the next slide. So this is how we do it. We call it defense in action. So these are the necessary things that one should have in their stack whenever they are preparing for any cybersecurity uh, preparation. The first thing is a good anti-malware solution. So traditional antiviruses are now outdated. You need a solution that has the EDR capabilities that can deal with the modern threats, attacks like fileless attacks, or attacks that are off the land kind of attacks, living off the lands. Then we bring in the email security, because that's a very essential component. Most of the threats that you get into your environment, these are actually penetrating through the emails. So if you talk about ransomware, you talk about credential compromise, you talk about any kind of attack. In most of the cases, we have found that the email is the medium where the attackers try to penetrate into your organization. So you definitely have to get some smart, intelligent email security solution that can help you differentiate between a legitimate email and illegitimate email. And this solution should have capability of URL defense, sandboxing. It can actually go through your attachments and make sure everything is clean. Then comes the vulnerability assessment, where we look into the vulnerabilities that are there in your environment using the various tools. If you have, web server, we do a web server scanning. If you have services that running on public facing services, mostly we do that scanning, and we look into what endpoints you have and what type of patches that you have already installed, or what type of patches that we are missing. And we basically create a vulnerability assessment report that help you to deal with the zero-day threats. So maybe you're missing a patch that can be exploited, even if it bypasses various mechanisms that we put in place. If your system is not patched, then obviously someone can easily exploit it. So it's a step where you also have to make sure that you do not have any active vulnerability, you know, that is not patched within your environment. Then comes our SIEM tool, where we collect all the logs from the tools and technologies that I have spoken about. And we also collect logs from various different sources you have. If you have a firewall, we collect logs from your firewall. You have servers, we collect logs from your servers, from your endpoints. and we do an analysis based on the data that we collect. If there is an anomaly that we detect, we notify you about it and help you with the remediation plan. And that is done by our 24/7 SOC team. So that is what we call defense in action, where various tools help you protect the environment. These are the essential part. Then, more depending upon the requirement, we do an assessment and recommend more technologies that you may require.
Thank you, Deepak. That was lovely.
Thank you.
And moving on, so let us, on similar grounds, let us talk about a real world example. So, sometime back, we were approached by a BPO, and they were facing a lot of challenges. It was a growing organization. This BPO was specialized in hiring remote employees for its clients. It used to cater to healthcare industry in the United States, and it was a global operator headquartered in the U.S. and having staff in Philippines. So while their operations were gaining rapid momentum in the post-COVID hiring climate, the demand for the workers working remotely was also increasing. So while they were rapidly scaling their operations across the US market and expanding their remote team, there were a lot of challenges, specifically in terms of security on, how would they scale up? How would they actually be able to monitor what their staff who is working remotely could be from a different country as well, based on the budget of the client? How will they ensure that they are able to cater to the industry that they're servicing to? So their challenges were they didn't have any cybersecurity expertise, and they were needing specialized talent. They had an extensive attack surface. They had too many unsecure remote employees and a virtual desktop. They wanted to implement and enforce internet usage policies. You know that when you have remote employees, you don't want them to, and when you're dealing with critical data, you don't want them to open any malicious website. You don't want them to go to a social media website or anything that the organization doesn't prefer to open. They were also having HIPAA compliance mandates because they were dealing with the healthcare clients. And their existing employees also reported frequent Windows crashes and issues with viruses. So, although they had an IT team, they really didn't have the cybersecurity expertise to work with that. Now, when they approached ACE, we provided them with a solution according to our security framework that Deepak spoke about in the last minutes. We provided them with a comprehensive solution based on detection and response security framework that we have. In our umbrella, we provided them with the ACE managed SIEM. It provides them an in-depth network visibility. It collects all the logs from all the security assets, from their firewalls, everything that they had. And it also helped them achieve HIPAA compliance with all the audits and reports that it provides. For internet enforcement, we provided them with a managed DNS filtering. We could specify its internet usage policies, web browsing filters, and anti-phishing safeguards, ensuring that employees, even remotely, cannot open the websites which can harm or which can sabotage the critical data that they are dealing with. And most importantly, we also provided them with a fully managed CrowdStrike Falcon inside EDR to give them comprehensive endpoint visibility. It's an automated threat response and secure remote work. So ACE's flexible pricing and pay-as-you-go model also helped the customers in ensuring cost efficiency for the BPO. As they have an expanding team, our solutions were flexible and easily scalable. As they're hiring more people, they are easily able to scale up and add more endpoints, more devices, and without any drastically increasing costs. Now, ACE doesn't really believe in the fit it and forget it approach. ACE security experts provide step-by-step post-deployment support. The ACE team shares the detailed monthly reports at the start of every month, as Deepak has already mentioned that the SIEM tool will generate all the logs. We will create a report out of it, and we send these reports to the customer every month. The monthly report summarizes security events and actions in the previous month, along with the plan of action, which is super important. A one-on-one session is scheduled between ACE security experts and the customer's internal team to discuss the report. ACE security analysts personally verify every P1 and P2 alert. The ACE team shares complete information on response actions already taken and remediation plans for malicious detections. So just like the above business case, endpoint protection, endpoint meaning your devices, your laptops, your computers, your desktop, is a primary concern for organizations today. We're all trying to make our working flexible, agile, and break down geographical boundaries. But unfortunately, hackers know that one of the best ways to breach a network is by targeting vulnerable endpoints. So based on the question asked in the poll, what if I tell you that you don't have to choose between these features? I'm about to introduce you guys to the leading EDR solution in today's market, one with all these essential features and much more. I introduce to you CrowdStrike Falcon EDR. This is an industry-leading uh, EDR CrowdStrike Falcon, and it is miles ahead of its competition. Endpoint detection and response are made easy with CrowdStrike purpose-built and fully native cloud solution. To speak on this further, I would quickly introduce you to Greg. Greg, I will be happy to pass over the microphone to you now. And I know we're all eager for his insights on the ultimate endpoint protection solution and learn from his experience. Greg, over to you.
All right, thanks for the intro, Mohit, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Um, as Mohit said, my name is Greg Lowe, and I'm a solutions architect at CrowdStrike. And today, I just want to tell you a little bit of the key features that distinguish CrowdStrike as a leader in the next generation antivirus and the endpoint detection and response industry, and presumably why ACE chose to trust us as their security vendor. So, CrowdStrike pioneered cloud delivered endpoint protection and is continuing to revolutionize the security market with new innovations every day. Our unique combination of technology, intelligence, and expertise comes together in a comprehensive platform for endpoint security. CrowdStrike Falcon platform is the industry's first true security cloud. So by leveraging our platform, the lightweight agent, to collect data once and use it many times, we can solve a variety of security problems while eliminating cost, eliminating complexity, and we're able to deliver various modules on this Falcon platform divided into three general categories. So at our core, we have endpoint security. That combines endpoint protection, leveraging cloud scale AI and deep link analytics to deliver best in class EDR, next gen antivirus, device control, and firewall management. That protection extends not only to traditional endpoints, but also into cloud security, providing the visibility that is needed to stop breaches on the cloud workloads, runtime protection for workloads and containers, and simple cloud native architecture that reduces complexity and provides you with an immediate time to value. Next, Falcon is able to deliver security and IT operations capabilities, including IT hygiene management and vulnerability assessment. So that is enriched by world-class threat intelligence, including malware search, sandbox analysis, which are fully integrated and automated, delivering deep context and predictive capabilities. And then finally, in addition to all of that, our Overwatch threat hunting service augments the ACE team and their customers with that 24/7 proactive threat hunting. And I noticed in the poll, a lot of you said proactive threat hunting is one of the most important things. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. All of this is delivered through our single lightweight Falcon agent, and that provides comprehensive endpoint security and visibility for all of your workloads, including workstations, servers, cloud workloads, containers, and even mobile devices. But we don't stop there. Our platform was built for nearly limitless extensibility, allowing ACE to leverage that single agent and that single platform to deliver a better security outcome. Go ahead and jump to the next slide for me. So Falcon, CrowdStrike Falcon does not rely on just one technology to prevent attacks. Instead, it is using an array of complementary and overlapping methods that provide the most comprehensive offering for antivirus replacement in the industry. And this allows Falcon to protect against known and unknown malware and malware-free attacks, protect against zero-day attacks, eliminate ransomware. It does not require signature updates, and it even allows for full protection when offline, which is very powerful. So Falcon is utilizing machine learning to protect against those known and unknown malware. And the sensor takes a signatureless approach, which means that it does not require constant updates to provide protection and can free your resources for more important tasks. But we also know that about half of the attacks that we're seeing in the wild, or what we refer to as the threat landscape, they were not performed utilizing malware. And against those fileless attacks, or what we refer to as malware-free attacks, Falcon utilizes exploit blocking and indicators of attacks, or IOAs for short. And both features protect beyond malware. Exploit blocking is self-explanatory, but what makes us different is that we're not just looking at the exploit, we're watching and blocking the technique that is being used instead of the exploit itself. And that's how we can stop even unknown or zero-day exploits. Indicators of attack are the behavioral analytics of Falcon. Next slide. So when it comes to responding to a threat, time is critical. Everyone knows that. The longer a threat lingers in your environment, the more damage it can do. Unfortunately, all too often and very commonly, the only tool that organizations have to respond is re-imaging their machines. And of course, nobody wants to do that. This process is not only slow, but it also introduces a great deal of downtime for the affected users. And to optimize responses by containing and remediating a threat with the lowest impact to those users, responders need the tools to act immediately and decisively when it's called for. So through Falcon, through CrowdStrike, the Falcon agent is able to provide that capability through what we refer to as real-time response, or RTR. And this allows responders to take necessary action. You can do intelligent actions when a threat is detected. This can include things like collecting additional information, such as samples of a suspicious file, or even reviewing network activity. It might even require isolating a host from the network, stopping a process from doing something malicious, or removing persistence measures from a compromised host. These powerful real-time capabilities are built into the lightweight Falcon sensor, and they empower ACE to act very quickly and greatly reduces the involved overhead that's associated with incident response. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So lastly is the Overwatch. So proactive threat hunting, as I know, is important, and I know that all of you believe the same. Proactive threat hunting is one of those tasks that benefits security more than almost anything else, but most organizations may not have the resources to fulfill it. Like Deepak and Mohit said, it's very expensive. And the Falcon Overwatch team was created to fill that gap. Falcon Overwatch proactively searches for threats on the customer's behalf 24/7. So Overwatch is going beyond passive automated detection offered by current security technologies and is focused on detecting threats that have bypassed other controls. Overwatch finds, investigates, and can even respond to smoking guns that point to stealthy or sophisticated attacks that would otherwise go undetected. And Overwatch is what we refer to as a force multiplier because it's providing proactive hunting resources and therefore reducing alert fatigue. The threat graph contributes to Overwatch's ability to hunt through more than 90 billion new events per day. From those events, Overwatch generates and investigates over 13 million hunting leads daily and identifies about 400 serious breach attempts every single week, which that comes down to about 2 per hour on average. And thanks to the Falcon platform, Overwatch is able to sift through these events across CrowdStrike's worldwide customer community and immediately share the protective elements across all of CrowdStrike's customers. That's what we refer to as community immunity or true communal protection. And in a single sentence, Overwatch finds the adversaries so that you don't have to. And they ensure that customers don't suffer what we refer to as a mega breach, which is what we call a breach where the adversary has achieved their goal and has created significant damage. So that's all from me today. But that is CrowdStrike powering ACE, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Greg. That was extremely informational, and we thank you for sharing your insights today with us. Now, at this time, we will go ahead and take some questions from the audience, and feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we will be responding to those. Thank you.
Yeah, we have two questions for the CrowdStrike.
Yes, Greg, would you like to take up the first question that we have for CrowdStrike? Or Deepak, would you
Yeah.
want to do that?
So CrowdStrike, in terms of protecting from DDoS attacks, we're not a networking tool, so that is not really something that I would say that we would provide. But in terms of brute force attacks, from an identity perspective, we do have a module specifically tailored toward securing your environments from an Active Directory and an identity perspective. So brute force attacks is definitely something that we can provide protection of.
All right. So the next question being, what if any malicious activity passes through CrowdStrike? Asked by one of the audience. Deepak, would you like to take this up?
Well, like none of the security solution is 100% foolproof. There is always a scope, but that's why I spoke about defense in depth. You cannot just simply rely on one tool. You need to have a sequence of tools. Like if you're protecting your endpoint, you need an email security so that you don't get threats from the email. Let's say something passes that mechanism, then you have your endpoint protection. CrowdStrike EDR is excellent enough to detect such threats. Let's say it bypasses the CrowdStrike, then you need a web security solution that works like a proxy and monitors all outgoing requests, and it can help you prevent such attacks. Let's say that happens, then you have an SIEM solution that will be going through your logs and passing that information to the analyst. It may not be able to give you an active response, but yes, proactive response would be there. And because it's going to be a P1 or P2 alert, our team would be able to notify you within 15 minutes that there is an incident happening in the environment, and they can quickly provide a remediation plan. So it's like, you have multiple layer of technology. Definitely someone would help you to detect it. But, if no one is able to detect it, then we have a response team. And we can definitely bring this to the CrowdStrike. They are very active support. So whenever we find true positives not being detected by CrowdStrike, we report those samples to the CrowdStrike, and they are able to quickly build some signatures or some machine learning queries to detect such attacks and block it in future.
Understood. Wow. So we have got a few more questions. Going to them linearly. So how does CrowdStrike Falcon detect malicious files which may have been modified by attackers? Like changing the metadata to change the hash of the file, or maybe even changing the script by some extent?
I would have Gray answer that.
Yeah, so with CrowdStrike's machine learning, I mean, not only are we looking at the behavior and the executions of every file, but by looking at the hash of the file, I mean, you can very easily detect changes. But CrowdStrike was designed from the beginning to look at the executions of the file. So, with legacy antivirus solutions, they were always looking to block malicious signatures, whereas CrowdStrike tends to look for behavior. So our root goal was to prevent the executions, not just malicious files from existing, if that makes sense.
Totally does. Wonderful. So the next question would be, what do we mean by zero trust? Asked by somebody in the audience. Deepa?
it's a very popular term these days. Can have several meaning from authentication to the network connectivity. So it basically more about what we are looking at. If we are looking at from the network perspective, then it's more like having more granular policies, controlling more traffic, what can access what, and putting controls to make sure that we are not just assuming, but all the policies are intact to provide a more isolated environment. When it comes to the identity, it basically talks about where, I mean, it has a lot of meanings where, in other words, I would say, let's say you are using an identity solution, and identity solution may be creating some cache in your browser. So when you are authenticated and you're navigating to a different application where the application would require the same sort of credentials. So when I say zero trust, I should not be able to browse through that session by just clicking on it. There should be some sort of authentication mechanism in place. So we are not just believing because you have already trusted this application and you can freely navigate to the other one. There should be some sort of re-verification needs to be done. Could be done through your identity providers. Can be done with there are a lot of technologies available in the market that can help you achieve this goal.
Understood. Thank you, Deepak. Next question, I believe, is for you, Greg. So the question says, we have heard that CrowdStrike has secured the US government, and the person wants to know how. Would you like to share more details on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I can really go into depth on that from a legal
True.
perspective, but yeah, we have secured an Impact Level 4 authorization, but we also have an entire cloud environment dedicated to FedRAMP partners that is FedRAMP authorized. So I mean, through use of all of our modules, we're able to provide that security to the government partners.
And that is extremely wonderful. And thank you so much for answering. And the last question for today, it's in two parts. So the first part being, do we have an option where we can customize CrowdStrike when we want to give permission to some users to install an application? Uh, Greg, will this be also directed towards you? Or Deepak, would you like to take this forward?
Well, I'm not pretty much clear about this question. What exactly is what's the intent behind this question? So if I did it correctly, we want to understand if we can customize the CrowdStrike when we want to give permission to some users to install an application. So basically, CrowdStrike doesn't know what user you. I mean, the policies are not user based. It's mostly applies to an endpoint. So when the policy is applied to an endpoint, there is no way I can say that this user would be permitted to install application and this user would not be. If it's a malicious activity, even if it's a trusted user, CrowdStrike will definitely intervene and block that activity as per the definitions and the machine learning algorithms that it has. On the second question, on my machine, do we get an alert when there is a threat or is on demand by the security team and can be found when the scanning is done manually? When there's a threat or is on demand by the security team. So I would say yes, of course, notification can be enabled. So if a threat is detected by CrowdStrike, you would definitely get a notification in your notification area. I cannot understand the other part. Can be found when scanning is done. So CrowdStrike is basically detects all the files that get dropped from the network. If you're downloading anything or you're copying files from the internet. But yes, now we do have a manual scan option where you can execute a scheduled scan that can actually look into the files that you have stored. But mostly, if you're not running a manual scan, CrowdStrike is a real-time anti-malware solution that will be, monitoring all the processes, applications that you're executing, and would be able to detect it. So when talking about idle files that are not yet executed but still staying there in your system, when you install the CrowdStrike, it may not detect it. But yes, when these files are executed, CrowdStrike would detect it. But in future, if you're downloading anything from the internet, that's dropping the files from the internet to your system, or copying any file from your shared drive, network drive, USB drives, CrowdStrike will definitely scan them.
All right.
Deepak really nailed that one on the head. CrowdStrike, as a whole, doesn't really believe in the need for on-demand scanning. That really was designed to satisfy a lot of the need for cyber insurance. But as he said, the Falcon sensor is running in real time. So it is always operating on your machine and always preventing that malware from executing. So that's really the take home.
Okay, I hope that answers the questions for the audience. And it looks like we have covered all of our questions. I don't see any more coming in. Greg, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up, since there are no more questions available for us?
That's it. Just hope to hear from you guys, and hope things go well with ACE.
Absolutely, and likewise, Greg. So again, to our audience, thank you everyone for giving us your precious time by attending today's webinar and being a wonderful audience. We hope to see all of you again for future ACE webinars. And the ACE experts, including myself, we're available 24/7, by the way. So feel free to reach out to us for any security consultations, any remediations, recommendations, or even for just a chat to discuss any possible scenario. And we will be happy to provide you with all the necessary information. Do check out our website and listed on your screens right now. We have, as I mentioned, we have bundle packages available. You'll be eligible for a certain percentage discount. So please reach out to our website, call us on the number, and we'll guide you further. Thank you, everyone. We will be closing this now. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Deepak, as well.
Welcome, Mohit. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.